Celtics Beat is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Gametime app.
Hey everybody, welcome in. We are back. Adam Kaufman, Evan Valenti. Our thanks, obviously, to both John Zanis and Bobby Manning for carrying the load last week and helping the Celtics through against the Orlando Magic. That series was, in a lot of ways, I think what many of us expected at its core, a Celtics win. I won't call it an easy win, but it was a gentleman's sweep, so you can define that however you want, but closely contested games. Certainly the Magic made them work for it, but Boston, with some bumps and bruises along the way, off to round two to reignite something that we'd all like to pretend is a basketball rivalry. Boston, New York, Celtics against the Knicks. We're here to talk about that, look back on the previous round, because obviously the last time we were with you, I think, was previewing the series, let alone giving you any thoughts in the middle of it. So vacation was nice, but here we are to reset the board and jump right back in. And joining us, it's why I always feel the need to rock my Syracuse hat when he's here. Brian Barrett, the three Syracuse heads come back together. Barrett, of course, of The Ringer and Spotify. He hosts the Off the Pike podcast there as part of the Bill Simmons group. And in that sense, we should talk a little bit later on, too, about the conclusion of Celtics City. The 9-part documentary over there on Max has finished up and was a really, as a Celtics fan, as an NBA fan, a really fun watch all the way through. But is anything perfect? No, because we're Celtics fans. We're nitpicky. We can get into that a little bit later on as well. Barrett, how you been, bud?
I'm doing well, fellas. Ready for round two. Let's go.
Ev, good vacation?
Well, I was going to make a joke about how neither of us are tan because we went to somewhere that the sun shines, but come back, we look just slightly less white.
We're like washed out by all the light. I have a tan. All right. If I just posted a photo, you saw me on the street, I've got a tan. You can't tell. I'm with you. I don't disagree with what you're saying. You can't see it. I don't know why. I don't know why the lights do what they do. I look better than this a little bit.
The next tan I get will be the first tan I get.
Yeah. That's the
Irish.
Yeah, Barrett just has freckles that get closer together to resemble a tan. That's basically what
Yeah.
Closer together. They multiply. They get a little bit darker, but yeah, no.
Koff, did you notice that people got hurt while I was on vacation again? This is like something that I need to start like avoiding. Maybe I should vacation when the Celtics don't play because like Tatum got hurt on that wrist, right?
Yeah.
I was like this because the Rob Williams one,
right,
like, legitimately derailed their entire season.
Sure.
And then Tatum gets hurt, and I did feel a little like guilty about it. I'm not gonna lie to you.
It's all right. Didn't come back any worse for the wear. You know, he if nothing else, got himself a little bit of time just to sort of reset a little bit. I was getting mocked on social media because it was, what was it? Game one he plays, he gets hurt. Game two he was out, right? And then game three was when there were questions going in as to whether he was going to play. And I tweeted like right before the injury report was finalized and came out that he was going to play. Like, I hope he sits. I hope he doesn't even play, because I didn't believe that you necessarily needed Jayson Tatum to beat Orlando. And I in game to game, you could debate it, obviously. Like it's, every game was kind of its own entity. I mean, Tatum went absolutely nuclear, had one of the best playoff games in his entire career in the clincher to put him away in 5. But I don't know. I'm just one of those. A lot of people out there fundamentally disagree with it. They don't like the conversation. You want to take a little time, like Jrue Holiday. Let's just start here. Do we believe, because we don't know, like nobody would tell us internally, certainly the medical staff, we have no idea what his medicals are, but Jrue Holiday missed a considerable amount of that opening round series. Do we believe that is because, and by the way, congratulations to Holiday on his postseason award, Sportsmanship of the Year award. Do we believe that is managing? Is it playoff level load managing, Barrett, of Jrue Holiday going into this next round and what is hopefully obviously a months long playoff run for the team that has 3 more rounds? Or is there something to be truly concerned about here?
Well, you know what's funny about that? I said on my pod after game 1, where he was awesome. He was awesome in game 2 as well, where he was their best guy on Paolo Banchero. He was unbelievable. I have some of the tracking data if you want it. But anyway, so I said on my pod, this is why they were so careful with Jrue this season, right? Why were we worried about his shooting, right? Why were we worried when he was missing time? We should have never been worried about Jrue Holiday. Everyone's like, he shot 60% from threes from the corner. Now he can't hit corner threes. And after game 2, I'm like, Well, he turns it up in the playoffs or after game one, which he does. Like, he was so great. And it's just like the stats aren't going to jump out at you when he has like a 9-point game, but he just does so many things. And he has this unique ability to make a big play, right? Whether it's an offensive rebound or like the one that's always in my head is the steal on Nembhard, where he actually beat Nembhard to his own dribble. It wasn't like he swiped it away from him. He just beat him to his own dribble. So I'm of two minds with this. So either they said, okay, let's not rush him back and we can win the series, which is certainly plausible, but this is a soft tissue issue. It's a hamstring injury. So did they just play this correctly and Jrue got extra rest? Or is this going to be something, because we don't know like the severity of the strain, right? What grade it is. Or is this something that's going to bother him throughout this run? They're already dealing with this Jaylen Brown knee situation. Tatum picks up the wrist thing, which is clearly fine. I mean, I would argue Tatum just had the best playoff series he's had in his career. I know it's the first round, but the one that sticks out to me is the Nets one where he just dominated Kevin Durant, but he was incredible in the series. Like all the isolation possessions, he had to play that way because of the Magic's defense. So Tatum seems fine. Porzingis had just a terrible series, but health-wise, all he had, like he gets a gash in his head. We're like, okay, we'll take that injury for Porzingis rather than something else because we know like his history. But I don't know what to make of Jrue's situation until we either see the injury report for Monday or we actually see him on the court or not playing, because then I think we're going to find out. And even if he plays Monday and he plays really well, well, I'm going to be thinking, okay, how's he going to look on Wednesday after that, right? Because this is something that could linger. It's not just like, you know, something that you recover from quickly. Like you can re-aggravate something like that.
Yeah, and Missoula had some media availability today. I'm recording this on Friday, so I think it was maybe earlier in the maybe late morning, early afternoon, doesn't matter. They still consider Jrue day to day, and this is just going to be the lingo they use until you see him play, I think. Yeah. And I don't think that it's lost on the three of us how important Jrue Holiday is to this particular run if they go so far, because again, last year they had a nice, easy time to the playoffs, you know, partly because Jrue was absolutely amazing and partly because people were hurt. This time, like, they're going to need Jrue to be Jrue Holiday again. Like, they're going to need that guy. You know, he was the third best player on the team last run. I don't know if he'll be that guy this time through, but they're going to need him because, like, what I just saw from Kristaps Porzingis, and like, look, it's one series, folks. It's like, let's not go crazy here. He's still a very valuable player, but the guy that we saw in those 5 games, like, just wasn't it. And
terrible series, both ends of the floor. But yeah. I think the matchup probably has a lot to do with that, don't you?
Absolutely. I think in like the Magic, and we had who do we have on? We have Greeny on before to figure out if we wanted to, you know, would it be more advantageous
when we were talking about Orlando versus Atlanta.
Right. That's why I didn't want to play Orlando right there. I was like, I'd rather play. I know Trae Young is going to go for a gajillion points, whatever. I'd rather play that team because the physicality that Orlando plays with is unbelievable. But at the same time, it's probably beneficial to play Orlando because you get to that intensity right away, which is good. And maybe you don't want to tax certain guys in that situation, and maybe that affected Porzingis in a certain way. But, like, they're going to need Holiday for maybe not this series against the Knicks, but as you look down the road, like that Cleveland matchup that's coming, or if Indiana happens to pull it off, you're going to need them for either Nembhard or, you know, Tyrese Halliburton. And then if you get to the NBA Finals, you're definitely going to need him, whoever the hell comes out of the West. I'm not even sure who it is going to be at this point. But go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say too, and this is a future conversation. We don't need to go crazy with this one, but just because it's somewhat current anyway, even though like Shams over at ESPN hit us with the no news bomb, you know, about, hey, like the NBA is bracing for the fact the Celtics might make changes in the offseason. Like, we've been talking about this for months because of obviously what they are coming up against financially. Like, this was pure and utter clickbait, and that's fine. I don't fault him or the network or anyone else for doing that. It's the day and age that we live in. But if we're going to react to that, the most logical piece, it's Jrue Holiday. This, you know, among others, by the way, like there could be multiple pieces that potentially move come this offseason. Some of that, like I saw Keith Smith over at Spot Track, well, specifically on Twitter, but say, you know, he believes, and again, this is just his belief. This is not informed opinion, speculation, whatever. This is just opinion. It was their path in the future financially this summer into next year is going to depend upon what they actually do this year, meaning they win another championship, they go back-to-back, they're looking for 3 in a row, they're more inclined to run it back versus they fall short somewhere along the way, even if it's in the NBA Finals, they don't get the job done. Maybe they open their eyes a little bit more to, okay, we need to modify XYZ, whatever it is. And I'm throwing names out here. He didn't, in the likes of Holiday or Hauser or maybe Cornette or, whatever. You could look at these different people. Hell, there are some people that believe, like, could Porzingis be moved? But I ramble on and on about all of this just to say, I think Holidays is aware of, as anybody in that organization, that in terms of winning another championship, and obviously he's already won 2. It's not like he's lacking a title, but this could be the end of the road. Like this could be that last opportunity, because if he is sent out this offseason to wherever, it's probably not a team that's going to get over the hump in the next couple of years to win a championship.
Yeah, I think Hauser is very likely, just because his salary compared to what he costs you tax-wise, it doesn't make any sense to keep him. Like, basketball-wise it does, but financially it's just tough to justify that. And remember,
you've got Shireman.
Yeah, you drafted Shireman, who I thought showed some real signs at the end of the season. Like, I like watching that guy play. But with Jrue specifically, it just feels like everything has led up to this point with him during the season. So that's why you just worry about the injury situation. But I just think he makes you so much more versatile, right? Like, one of the things the Knicks could try to do in the series is say, all right, we're going to put Karl Anthony Towns on Jrue. So Karl Anthony Towns isn't involved in the action as much. Well, you know what the Celtics are going to do? They're going to have Jrue set screens, because Drew's so versatile, right? He can pop, or Jrue on the short roll. If you're going to have Jrue Holiday going down the lane 4-on-3, he's going to make the right basketball play. So, and the other component to that is, on the flip side, you could argue he's your best player to cover Brunson, although I don't think they'll start that way, right? It's going to be interesting how they deal with these matchups, because Jalen throughout the season has been the guy that always gets the opponent's like best wing player or guard. But I do wonder, with this knee situation, do you kind of take that back a little bit? I know he covered Banchero. This is a different type of matchup with Brunson. But also, we've seen Jrue Holiday guard Karl Anthony Towns. My guess would be that Tatum starts on Karl Anthony Towns in the series. But that's the thing about Jrue. He can, like, obviously, he can't guard Jokic one-on-one. He would struggle against Towns if they actually post Towns. But it feels like, for whatever reason, Tom Thibodeau and that coaching staff, they don't really want to involve Karl Anthony Towns in their offense, which I would say, why did you trade for him? It's just weird. I don't know. That was a weird series for the Knicks. I thought it was very poorly coached, quite frankly, on both sides. And I think Mazzulla has not a small coaching advantage, like a massive coaching advantage against Tom Thibodeau. But I just, circling back as I digress here, I think it's just so important that Jrue makes this team, like, the Celtics are great because of their versatility on defense. Like, what the Magic were doing to them, that's what the Celtics have been doing to teams for years because of Al Horford. We saw it last year, right? So Donovan Mitchell has that one big game, a ton of big games, but he had that big game when he was going up against Al in a ton of isolation situations. Did the Celtics overreact? No, because look at Game 5 when it's Darius Garland, right? He does an outstanding job on Darius Garland. Go to the NBA Finals multiple times where he gets switched on Luka or even Kyrie. So this versatility that the Celtics have, I think Jrue Holiday is like the guy that represents, him and Al Horford represent it the most. And it's just, he's so good in the playoffs. It's like, I forget who was saying this the other day, but the Draymond Green quote about like an 82-game player, I think it was Zach Lowe actually, an 82-game player against a 16-game player in terms of like a playoff player compared to a regular season player. Drew's a 16-game player. He is. He's just better in the playoffs.
I will say, though, because I had been not sounding the alarm bells, but it's something I had been paying attention to throughout the entire season. And now that I'm back on a platform here, Payton Pritchard was spectacular filling in defensively for Jrue Holiday. And I never thought I would say that. I'm not trying to say that he was Jrue Holiday out there. That's not what I'm getting at. Last season, it was very evident that Pritchard's effectiveness lessened over time from each round. And then basically in the NBA Finals, he's just, as we all said, like the first special teams player in NBA history of just coming in for half-court heaves. That was it. I've been kind of with, as we knew where this season was going and we had different people on the show and trying to find new things to talk about, I was like, man, this Pritchard stuff last year, I can't get out of my head that, you know, when it came time to really win serious games. Like he was targeted on defense and they couldn't play him anymore. Well, in this series against Orlando, he was amazing defensively and held up against Banchero and against Wagner as best as he possibly could. I mean, he's given up, 8-9 inches to these guys and I don't know how many pounds, but he's
got to be like 70 to Paolo.
Yeah, Paolo is just an absolute monster. But he's at least making it difficult for those guys to get going. And I love the quote he had. I think Noah Dalzell, who works for CLNS, I think she asked the question of talk about. And she didn't use the word talk about because that's the worst thing to do in journalism history. But she at least gave him credit to his face that he was defending really well, and he responded with yeah, we discussed instead of me laying back, I had to be more aggressive and get into guys' air spaces to at least make it a little more difficult for them. If I allow them to push me around all the time, I'm going to get back underneath the basket, basically. But if I can meet them at the catch point where they catch it, and I can get into them and be physical, then I can win on my terms. And so as you watch the growth of certain guys, that was, I don't know about you two, but for me, kind of a big deal because they're going to need Pritchard's offense eventually. I know he didn't have it against Orlando. They're going to need his offense. And if he doesn't give it up on the other end, he becomes a way more valuable player to me. And as you look ahead here against this Knicks team where you're going to have to score more points, Barrett, they're going to need Pritchard to hit some of these threes to keep up with the Knicks because they're just a way better offensive team. Personally.
Yeah, the thing with Pritchard in this series against the Magic is he just does such a good job at staying in front of guys. And that's why I was sort of surprised. And maybe it's just not how the Magic want to operate. But why wouldn't, when they got those switches, why wouldn't they back him in? It felt like they were trying to go by him. And it's guys, he's faster than you. He's quicker than you. That's not how you're going to expose Payton Pritchard. Maybe it was just they felt they had to try to go quickly because if they tried backing him in, the Celtics are going to help in some way, shape, or form. But I would argue that would actually help the Magic because then they get the ball moving around. But I do think that's a big step for Pritchard that really wasn't talked about as much this year because we were so fascinated by the offense, right, where he's scoring the most points in the NBA coming off the bench. But I remember going through some of these games and I'm he didn't score, but I thought he actually played really well, which is when would you ever say that about Payton Pritchard, right? That's something when Sam Hauser doesn't score, it's he's not bringing much to the table, right? But especially you look at Pritchard when he's not scoring, I was shocked that he would have that much of an impact on the game. But with the Knicks, I know you said, Valenti, the offense is way better. I would also say the defense specifically against the Celtics is a lot worse, and they're going to be able to get so many more three-point opportunities. They hit the most threes per game against the Magic this season. They gave up so many threes to the Celtics, and the Celtics had the best offensive rating in the NBA against the Knicks this season. I think this is just a horrible matchup for the Knicks.
Let's talk some Celtics-Knicks. Obviously, these teams have faced off in the playoffs a number of times. 5 times back in the 1950s as original franchises. Who the hell else were they going to face? So obviously, we saw them again between 67 and 73, 4, another 5 times, a couple times in the 80s there. But basically, ever since the 74 Eastern Conference Finals that the Celtics won 4-1, by the way. It has been in 84, you had an exhilarating 7-game series in the semifinals of the Eastern Conference. But since then, it's been all first round since 88. And Celtics have taken, most of them. It's 3 out of 5 or 2. Actually, they've split. They won in 88, 3-1. In 90, the Knicks won 3-2. In 11, obviously, the Celtics swept 4-0. And then the Knicks won in 6 in the opening round in 13. And, this being the first one since. So first playoff series between these teams in a dozen years. Again, despite the number of meetings, I am not by any stretch poo-pooing the Boston-New York rivalry as cities. As right. We know what that is. We know what regionally and just all of it. Like as sports fans, like Boston, New York, it's a big deal. Boston, Detroit, not nearly as big a deal. I mean, probably a bigger deal basketball wise, but as you know, as people, like we get more excited talking about facing a team from New York. So I get that. Like I'm amped up about seeing the Knicks in that sense more so than the Pistons, even though I really believe the Pistons were going to win that series. I thought they were the better team throughout most of that series. They just couldn't freaking close at all. And so the Knicks, obviously, coupled with clutch player of the year, Jalen Brunson, and all of his heroics, and no thanks to Cat, they got over the hump time and time and time again, and they end up winning that series. But Boston, New York, as like basketball, no, not there isn't this great historical playoff rivalry. Maybe something starts now. Maybe we get the series that I'm not expecting, but guys, I don't expect it. I think Orlando, again, played out largely how we thought it was going to. Celtics in a sweep, Celtics in a gentleman's sweep. Maybe, just maybe, Orlando takes them 6, but probably not. Obviously, it doesn't happen. The only difference being, for me anyway, it was harder than I thought. I thought Boston would win. I just didn't think game to game it would be necessarily as hard as it proved to be, largely, again, on account of that Orlando defense. New York doesn't have that. Jalen Brunson, he can kill you. There are a lot of different guys offensively in that New York, up and down that New York roster that have the ability to go nuts. Like Towns is capable of having some great games offensively. Anunoby can go crazy. There are a bunch of guys. Like obviously those, like Hart can have his moments. There are different dudes obviously on that team, but defensively, the Celtics are going to shred that team. This isn't Orlando on the other side. There's no people wanted to do the whole did Orlando give the rest of the league a formula to beat Boston? Well, let's just say it did. Okay, take away the threes, make them go ISO. Take away ISO, make them shoot from 3. New York isn't going to be able to stop either one, Barrett. I mean, Boston could have an easier time in this series, across the board. Boston could win the sweep. Maybe it goes 5. Boston, faced them 4 times in the regular season. 1 went to overtime, but won all 4 games by an average of 16 points. And this series could look similar. It could be blowout, 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 almost all the way through, with the New York stealing 1 at MSG. That is what I anticipate from this series. And if we go 6, if we see a 6-game series here, that will surprise me. That will surprise me a fair amount, short of obviously an injury taking place.
Yeah, to your original point, I would say the biggest rivalry is the Sixers, because they have historically great series and recent series, right? Going back to 2 years ago when Tatum hit the shots at the end of Game 6 and then the 51 in Game 7, and obviously going back to Dr. J and Bird. I would even say in more recent vintage, the Bucks with Giannis has been a bigger rivalry going back to 2022, and then remember that epic, the Drew Bledsoe series, Eric Bledsoe series with Terry Rozier? That was an awesome series that's when Middleton just scared everybody, right? Middleton, I felt like that guy was never going to miss another shot again against the Celtics. But to your point, if you go back to last season, I would argue that the Pacers were a more difficult matchup for the Celtics than Dallas. The Pacers actually had the best offensive rating of any team in the playoffs against the Celtics. And the Celtics just were a terrible matchup for Dallas because of the way that they could defend both Luka and Kyrie. I felt I don't know if the Celtics ever figured out Indiana's half-court offense because it's just chaos, right? So I would much rather be playing this Knicks team specifically than playing the Pacers. I think that Pacers-Cavaliers series could get interesting. I expect the Cavaliers to win, but it wouldn't shock me in any way, shape, or form if Indiana makes this an interesting series that goes 7 games. I would be surprised if it happens for the Celtics. The one caveat, though, is just the health, right? Because they don't match up well with the Celtics defensively because, all right, the only guy they have that can try to stop Tatum is OG. And we saw Tatum, of course, just send him back 4 feet and hit that 3, right, in the most recent game. He's the only guy. Bridges is just, he used to be this great defender. He's not that guy anymore. And that type of player doesn't bother Tatum. You have to be strong to bother Tatum, right? Mikal Bridges isn't a strong guy. He's a long, lanky defender. So that's the thing, is I just don't think they have the defensive personnel. And the other component to this is, like, even if we look at that last series, I felt like they had success going at Paolo, which I thought they would do more so than they actually did. Tatum really, and Jalen got him the 2 fouls there that gave him his 4th and 5th foul. They went at Carter a little bit, but specifically with the Knicks, there's 2 guys that they can go after. What does John Morant call them? Pigeons? There's 2 pigeons they can go after. They can go after Jalen Brunson because he's small, and Tatum can take advantage of that. And they can also, as we've seen over the past 2 years, they're going to go at Karl Anthony Towns. So how are they going to try to avoid that if they're the Knicks? Like, if you're the Magic, you say, all right, Jayson Tatum, you want to try to beat Wendell Carter all night in isolation? And they were fine with it. You think the Knicks are going to say, hey, Jayson Tatum, you want to go at Karl Anthony Towns all night? We're going to be fine with that. No, they're not going to be okay with it because he doesn't have a chance at staying in front of him. So I just think defensively, like that Magic series, I don't think it's indicative of anything going forward with this team, except maybe how teams guard Porzingis. Maybe teams guard Porzingis with smaller players, try to get up underneath them. But the only team that can do what the Magic did is in the Western Conference. And they did it to the Celtics earlier this season, OKC, when they had that, 11-point quarter? Remember that 4th quarter? That's the only team that can do it. There's no other, even if you look at, say the next round, say the Celtics win this series, knock on wood. I mean, I believe it's going to happen, but knock on wood, I want to be superstitious here. The Cavaliers aren't doing that with, now maybe if they go really small and play Mobley at the 5, they can try to do it, but is Garland on the floor if you're doing that? Because the Celtics are going at Garland. If it's the Pacers, they're going at Halliburton. We saw last year before the injury. So there's no other team that has the personnel that the Magic have to be able to do that. Like Anthony Black's 6'7", 6'8", and like they were strategic about, and then they just didn't play him when they played Cole Anthony, right? Like they were playing him in times where like, hey, Tatum's on the bench, let's throw him in the game. Like it was that type of stuff.
And think about the other guys too that they'll bring off the bench, like a Deuce McBride or a Campaign. Like none of those guys are going to slow down this offense. And then you look at the flip side. You look at the flip side of it. Boston's going to have multiple guys that they can not guard. Like Josh Hart, don't need to guard him from 3. Mikal Bridges, I'm letting him shoot until he shows me he can actually hit shots. If they ever play Mitchell Robinson, if he's not in the paint, then don't worry about it. Like there's just nothing you have to worry about there. The only concern, I think, for me, from a like where can New York try and win on the margins is that offensive rebounding capacity just with Mitchell Robinson. And he's been a pain in the ass for Boston. If he's been healthy in any of these games against the Celtics over the past couple of years, he's been a pain in the ass on the offensive boards. And now that Hardenstein is gone, you don't have to worry about 2 guys doing that, so it'll be a little bit less. But there were certain points in that Magic series that, and especially in the last game, where like Cole Anthony is crashing from the 3-point line, just trying to do anything he can to keep this series going. That's, for me, the only area of concern that I have in terms of like what will New York try and do to try and steal some points or try and steal possessions. Like that's the only thing that really is glaring to me. Barrett, do you have anything else besides, because like it's not a team that's going to kill Boston in transition, I don't think. Like Orlando in the middle of that series figured out like, hey, after made baskets, we need to push to get them out of their set half court defense, because in the half court they're kicking our ass defensively. We need to beat them on the floor. Like I just don't know outside of offensive rebounds and extra opportunities that there's anything that Knicks can do to try and turn the tables in their direction. Barry, you got anything else for me? Because I got nothing. Kaufman, you either? Like if you're trying to win?
The thing that I just keep thinking about with respect to the Knicks and how they could attempt to win this thing and how much is like, when is enough? Like we've had, and maybe we'll have the same conversation again, coming up here in the playoffs, depending on how things go against the Knicks and how everything plays out, Cavs-Pacers. But, like historically, like we go on and on. Donovan Mitchell, he's so good against Boston, 30 points every single game, and yet they can't get over the hump. They can't beat the Celtics. Why? Because the Celtics game plan largely is let Mitchell do whatever the hell he wants and stop everybody else. So if you kind of go into this thing in a similar way with Jalen Brunson, let's just say, for argument's sake, and this absolutely won't happen, Jalen Brunson, he just put up 40, including that dagger, obviously, to, send the Pistons home or keep them home for what it was worth there at the end of that first round series. Let's say he averages 40 points against the Celtics. How many games does that win them? How much is enough for the Knicks out of Jalen Brunson specifically? I'm looking at his game log against the Celtics going back years at this point in time. And you got to go all the way back to never to find a time that he even scored 40 points one time against the Celtics, let alone averaging it in the series. In recent games, 27, 22, 36, 22, 39, 34, 23, 26, 15, 17, 29, 20. I'm back now to when he played for Dallas at this point in time back in 2022. Everything else, Knicks games. So that's what? Out of however many games, 3 30-plus point games? I mean, I think Boston already has the formula, guys. They took 4 out of 5 against them last year and went 4 for 4 against them this year. Like, I'm not going to say, like, never say never. Not like, because if Tatum tweaks his freaking ankle 10 minutes into game 1, series is different. If Jaylen Brown, all of a sudden that knee is a problem, which it wasn't in round 1, series is different. Kristaps Porzingis, who I do believe is a factor, especially, I mean, he's had great games of late against the Knicks. He gets motivated playing at MSG. He gets motivated playing against his old team. If he goes down, that's a problem. But if the Celtics are healthy, not to just continue to go back to that caveat, but it's the caveat. It's the caveat that matters for every team this time of year. If the Celtics are as healthy as they are right now, and that's Jrue Holiday notwithstanding in this particular series, I just don't see them having an issue.
Yeah, well, there was times where I thought he looked awesome, and then there was times where I thought Jalen, maybe that knee is bothering him. You can see sometimes, like when he's landing, it almost looks like he's bracing himself. But to your point, I think that couple things here. If they can somehow get that Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns pick and roll game going, because for some reason, I don't know why they didn't do it more, because I felt like they put such a heavy burden on Brunson in that particular series. Yeah, and the other thing is, like, going back to why I thought that series was just so poorly coached, even going back to, they got the offense going a little bit when Brunson and Cat were in the pick and roll game in that game on Thursday night. But then, like, Bickerstaff, for some reason, he's got Duren on Towns. Why isn't Duren on Hart? So you can just switch that. So that's one thing the Celtics won't do, is they will put their big on Josh Hart. The one thing I am interested in terms of something that the Knicks can try to take advantage of, Horford is going to switch and Brunson may beat him in switches. Like, that's going to happen from time to time, but Al's also going to win that matchup from time to time. The Porzingis portion of this, because he was so bad in that last series, and that's the one guy, and if you don't, like Cornette, obviously, too. Like, they'll switch even Hauser on him, right? Like, they'll switch Hauser on Brunson. You don't feel great about it, but the Celtics will do it just so they can't get the ball flying around. Is if they can take advantage of Porzingis in switches, and Brunson is so crafty, and Porzingis couldn't stay out of foul trouble in the final 2 games, if they can take advantage of that. But the thing that the Celtics have that most teams don't have is the guy that usually doesn't start for the Celtics when Jrue Holiday's healthy, Al Horford. He's probably, and look, I know this sounds kind of crazy to say, but he's probably just a better playoff player than Porzingis. Unless Porzingis can really abuse switches, and that's the reason he's here, right? Going back to 2023, when the offense would stall out in that series, in particular against the Heat or in that playoff run, they wanted Porzingis so you could beat switches. And that was supposed to be what really propelled them against the Magic, to the point where I bet on Porzingis to lead the series in points. I'm like, Porzingis is just going to beat all these switches. He couldn't do it. So if he's not doing that on the offensive side of the floor, and look, he's had great games against his former team. We've seen this in the past. But I do wonder if he becomes somewhat of a liability that the Knicks try to go after. The card that Mazzulla has, though, is he doesn't have to play him. He can play, like, you love to play him, and you love Porzingis to be a major factor in this series. But it wouldn't shock me at all if Brunson takes advantage of that matchup. And at the end of the series, you look at the game logs, and it's like, whoa. And not because of health. Al just played more than Porzingis in that series. That would not surprise me.
Let's take a quick break, tell you about our good friends over at Gametime. There's nothing better than going to a game live, especially this time of year, right? Playoffs. Oh, I have been to NBA Finals games, World Series games, Super Bowls, Stanley Cup final. You cannot replicate those memories in a just pathetic little meaningless regular season game, Ev. No, our regular season games, they matter. They don't compare. We know it. And so many core memories I have as a kid, as a young adult, as an adult, as a dad, revolve around going to some sort of sporting event. And now just going to a game, it's easier than ever, Ev, thanks to our friends over at Gametime.
And it's the best time of year, Kaufman. It really is. You have playoff basketball going on right now. We love it. We talk about it on this show all the time. Celtics in the playoffs. Life's great, but there's other stuff. You know, there's other things in life. There are comedy events, and there are theater events. There are concerts you can go to. Like, my girlfriend's a huge Sabrina Carpenter fan. You know how often I check Gametime all the time to see if Sabrina Carpenter tickets have come down back to earth a little bit? I do it all the time. It'd be an amazing surprise, wouldn't it? It'd be an amazing surprise. But I keep checking because I love that woman. But
Sabrina Carpenter?
I love my girlfriend and Sabrina Carpenter, so there's that. But great question. But Gametime makes life super easy because they show you the stuff in your neighborhood right up front. You can search for things very easily. And whenever you find the event you're looking for, they're going to show you once again up front where the best deals are for the value, right? They're going to be labeled certain things. You'll see great deal, amazing deal, super deal, all these things to give you the best bang for your buck right up front. And that's what's really this is all about, folks. Gametime is all about value, right? When you log in, you get all in pricing when you're looking at your seats. There's no weird fees at the end, no surprises. It's all right there. And if you're curious what your seat looks like, you get a panoramic view from that chair in the app before you buy it. They have the lowest prices at Gametime, and if they're somehow not, Gametime's going to pay you 110% of the difference, and your ticket is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the industry. It's a complete slam dunk, Kaufman, with Gametime.
Again, that's all-in pricing, panoramic view from your seats, the lowest price guarantee, Gametime ticket coverage, you name it. Gametime is there for you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets and do it with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create your account, redeem the code. It is CLNS. Get $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, guys, let's keep going with Porzingis for a minute because his numbers against Orlando averaged 27 minutes. You know, there was foul trouble in a couple of games, as we know, but it wasn't a consistent issue throughout the series. He shot, though, just 35% from the field, a woeful 12% not even from three. That's really what jumps out at you, obviously, and averaged a dozen points, below 6 rebounds. Not that he's this elite rebounder, but just the dozen points. You know, you would love, you know, and that was with a 19 to 20 in there. You would love Porzingis to be closer to what he is generally. And I don't even mean give you 19 and a half, 20 points per game, but 17, 18, something like that. You have to feel good, Ev, at the very least, knowing that specifically against the Knicks, as a member of the Boston Celtics over the last couple of years, this is the game log: 30-8, 21-6, 21-3, 22-4, 14-8, 15-7, 34-4. And a lot of those games, on memory anyway, have had very fast starts. It's right out of the gate, Porzingis is involved. They tried to do that over the last couple of games, including the clincher against Orlando, and he was just missing his shots. You know, he wasn't scoring, but he would take, 5-6 first quarter shots, and they weren't falling. Credit the Magic defense there. I don't think, and like Barrett was talking about what the Knicks may be able to do to exploit Porzingis defensively. Fine, I don't disagree with that. But in terms of the offense, I feel like Porzingis, like this has to be a Porzingis series. If he can stay on the floor, if he can stay healthy, if he can stay out of foul trouble, this has to be a Porzingis series offensively. He has to be. I won't be surprised if things go according to plan anyway, if your top scorers for the Celtics in this specific series at the end of it are Tatum, Porzingis, Brown, in that order.
No, I don't think that's shocking at all. And I think the comfortability of playing in both places is going to be a factor here. Like, he clearly is comfortable playing in New York City, did so there for years. I think he gets a little revved up playing the Knicks to like stick it to him. So I think that'll be an interesting part of it. I don't disagree with the try and get him involved early and get him feeling good about himself. That's usually a good smart move there. And I think with the way that the Knicks are just built, I think this is a potentially huge Porzingis gets hot from three matchup here, where he can on these pick and rolls with whether it's Tatum or Brown or White, or like I'd love to see a little Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis pick and pop, see how that works out. And I think last series they try to get him going with, instead of picking and popping, it's a pick and dive, try to get him easier baskets towards the rim, maybe he gets fouled, go to the free throw line, that kind of stuff. Trying to get him back in the rhythm is going to be huge, and he could feast. Like, it wouldn't shock me that he would feast. And he's been able to kill this team, the Knicks, shooting over guys, whether it's a Brunson or a Hart or, a Campaign or whoever, or it's someone like Karl Anthony Towns who doesn't have the foot speed to get back to him as he pops on a pick and pop from the wing. Like, there are opportunities for Kristaps Porzingis to feast in this series and to do well in this series. And Kaufman, the picture that you just painted of him being second behind Tatum, because Tatum's coming in first in points in this series, folks. We'll get into him in just a second. But like him coming in second and averaging 21, 22, 25 a game on good 3-point volume, like I think it's a high possibility here. And if that's happening, the Knicks have zero chance. Like zero chance if Porzingis is doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it'll be White who is second in the team in scoring in the series, just because White has had so much success against the Knicks, and he really benefits from that two-man game with Tatum, depending on who they put on Derek White. A lot of times you see Derek White just flipping out for a little three-pointer, and Derek White against the Knicks this season, he's over 54% from the field and over 54% from three. Shot the ball really well. And Derek White's just a really clutch player. I mean, every time he takes a big shot, you think it's going in. We saw it in that closeout game, or the game before the closeout game, where he hit a couple of big threes late, right? Like, even if he's not going well early, you could expect that he's going to hit a big shot late. It just, maybe Porzingis was just in his own head. I mean, you cited some of those numbers, Kaufman, that are just unbelievably bad. You look at just like the pure post-ups, 23 possessions, 14 points, 0.61 points per possession. He was 3 of 16 on post-ups. And these are against all guys that are smaller than him. I don't know what it was. Like, even if you think about, remember that three he took from the logo?
Yeah.
It's like, why are you taking that?
In the first quarter.
There's like 12 seconds left on the shot clock. Like, what was he doing? It just felt like he was trying to do he had the one good game, game two, and with the game that Tatum didn't play in. Other than that, I don't know. He's too good of a player to have another series like that. So I just think he was in his own head. That's what I think. But I do think, like, you got to think of certain like things you can try to poke at with the Celtics, because there's really not a lot of them, right? Like, who's Jalen Brunson going to go at? I think it'd be trying to go at Porzingis a little bit. Maybe he tries to do it against Derek White a little bit, like if he tries to like back him down, but White's such a good defender. I thought like maybe Paolo would go after Derek White a little bit more than he did, just because like Paolo's better going at White than he is going after Horford, just because like Paolo overpowers you. He doesn't go by you with speed. That's where, like, guys like Donovan Mitchell go at Al Horford rather than going at one of the Celtics guards. But that's why I just referenced Porzingis as like maybe something that they try to attack, and maybe they try to play him sort of not out of the series, but if they take advantage of that, then they don't have to deal with his offense if he's not on the floor, right? You rather deal with Al's offense than Porzingis' offense.
Let me ask you guys this. So far here in the playoffs, the Celtics are attempting 31 3-pointers per game. 31. Now, again, that's because of how the Magic elected to guard them. Credit to them. Only shot about 38% also. 11.8 out of 31.2. What do those numbers, if you had to forecast it, look like against the Knicks? Are we going to see 31 jump to like 45? What's this look like?
Yeah, you're going to see way more 3-point volume against this team. Way more. I think it's in the 40s for sure. If you go back and look, stat news can be pretty quick here. This is the worst radio of all time.
Well, they hit 21 per game against the Knicks during the season.
There you go. So yeah, so it's not like they're not going to be able to get a ton up. They're going to get way more up against this team. So it's going to be one of these things where, if they're hitting a decent clip, if they're shooting, 35.
And I'm sorry. My number's not right. It's got to be less than that because I was giving you the total attempts for all the players at 31.2. So I'd have to pull up what Boston actually did across the 4 games against them. Here, it's easy enough to tell you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt while I was giving that revelation.
The point being, they're going to have way more threes against the Knicks.
Yeah, there will be way more for sure.
Yeah. If they shoot 35%, it's like I was tracking it earlier in the year. If they just shoot like 35% from three, they're almost like kind of impossible to beat because the math's just the math. Like They just take so many. If they hit, if they're getting, upwards of 30, 40, 50 points from 3-point range, like you're totally screwed because they're going to beat you that way. I mean, you can't. 3 is greater than 2, and I don't have to go further than that. But it's just one of these things where the 3-point volume wasn't there, and that's what was so impressive about the Orlando series is they went a completely different way with Tatum and Brown isoing against everybody, and Tatum was 1.05 points per possession on isos, and Brown with the knee was 1.04. So they killed the Magic in isolation, and it's good to know they can win that way. But like they are going to kill this Knicks team with threes, and the Knicks will maybe try and keep up. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But if Boston shoots below 40 per game, I would be stunned personally.
What'd you say, Barrett? They took against the Knicks throughout the regular season?
They hit 21 per game.
Hit 21 per, yeah. That makes sense.
So they're probably shooting if they're hitting 21 per game, they're obviously shooting more than 42 because that's half. That's 50%. So they're probably going to get 50 up, dude. I mean, they're getting 50 shots. They're getting 45 to 53s up again for sure.
No,
unless the Knicks like somehow become different people. I don't know. Ain't happening.
I'm about 90 seconds away from turning this into an ad for the accountant too, as I do the math.
If you're looking at the attempts, it's over 48 against the Knicks. They took 48.
No. I'm looking against what the Celtics just did against the Magic. So the attempts
it was low 30s.
Yeah, the attempts across the 5 games were in no order: 37, 27, 31, 24, 37. So that's 156. So it's 31.2. So I think with the original number I gave you might have even been right. But let me see.
They took 6 in one half. They only took 6 in the first half the other night, and they hit 0. They went 0 for 6.
No, I just think the style of play is going to, as we've been talking about throughout the show, look so dramatically different against the Knicks versus what it did, obviously. Yeah, no, that number I gave you was dead on. 31.2 was right. So I should have just trusted the original number.
That's all right.
Listen, still a little vacation brain. All right, guys. In the interest of time, because we've been at it for about an hour at this point, let's mix in a couple other little things.
Well, hold on. Before we get going, I got to do 2 things. One, for those of you watching, listening to the show, really appreciate it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to the podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple, wherever, and leave a review for us in the comment section. We love that. It helps us a ton here at CLNS. Make sure if you don't listen to us on podcast streams and you do watch us on YouTube and stuff, make sure you subscribe to Celtics All Access on the YouTube channel. You can find our shows, a bunch of other great content, Garden Report, the A-List podcast. We have a ton of Celtics.
Put in the comments how I talk too much.
What's up? Oh, yeah.
Comments how I talk too much.
Tell Kaufman that he talks way too much. I do want to actually get into something really quickly here. And I'll make it quick. We just watched, as Barrett said, and I totally agree with him, maybe the best series in Tatum's career. At this point, he was unbelievable. Became the second Celtics player in the history of the Celtics to score 30-plus points in 3 straight playoff games, joining only Larry Bird. You guys know what Tatum's stats are this year against the Knicks?
Not off the top of my head, no. What do you got?
33.5 points per game, 7 assists, 6.8 rebounds. So, what is my question?
Decent.
Are we in the middle of what will be a narrative changing postseason for Jayson Tatum?
Well, everyone wants to do the whole like Jayson Tatum's on a mission, and there are. This is where I speak out of 2 sides of my mouth, as I am wont to do. One, I think like don't do that now. Like don't do that now. Of course he is. He's because he had a great statistical series against the Magic and put up one of his best playoff games ever in his career, coming off a championship. And you know, like we're always talking about these motivational factors for Tatum. Like don't just like swoop in now at the beginning of May and do the whole Jayson Tatum is on a mission thing when so many of us. And it like, well, this is not unique to this show. This is a lot of people have been doing this, but it's like the national people are just like the Stephen A's of the world are just like it would feel like if you tune into some of that programming or just watch the clips that go viral across social media, whatever it is, like you would think some of these people have only just discovered Jayson Tatum. And they want to have these debates. Jayson Tatum, against Anthony Edwards, you know what? Look what Ant has achieved. Look what Tatum has achieved. And how do we debate the whole face of the league kind of thing? When like a bunch of us, like Tatum has been on a goddamn mission since the second he watched Jaylen Brown, you know, win NBA Finals MVP last year. Or since he didn't play, got benched multiple times in the Olympics. Like none of this is new. What we are seeing out of Jayson Tatum should not be surprising anybody right now. What we should all be doing, Evan, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to steal this from you. We've just been we should be enjoying the freaking show because this is exactly what the expectation for Jayson Tatum in the spring and early summer of 2025, barring you got a mostly, if not entirely healthy Boston Celtics team, a more than representative team coming off of what they did last year in Banner 18 on the quest for Banner 19, this is what it should be. Like what we're seeing right now, and this is where like I'm being unfair. This is where I'm not giving him the credit that he deserves. This is where I am falling into the trap. We watch him on a daily basis. We judge him on a daily basis, and he continues to, you know, lift all ships, right? You know, lift everyone around him and continues to impress at such a level that we take it for granted, like a bunch of a-holes. What he is going out there and doing right now is so historically impressive that we couldn't possibly give this guy the proper due that he deserves. Is he on a mission? Sure. But like that mission didn't just start when the playoffs began and it's all 0-0 now. Let's go get Banner 19. He has been after this next ring, this next trophy, this next banner, this next company of, you know, like the last Celtics to win consecutive championships were part of the Russell era. Bird didn't do that. Pierce and KG didn't do that. Like this is elite company that we are potentially seeing here in the Boston Celtics. They get to go, like we talked about this with Grandy not too long ago. They're trying to go behind yet another door that like, all right, you know the handshake into one, man. Now you can get into another one. And like I just again, I'm going on and on, but I don't know what there is. There is so little left for Jayson Tatum to show us at this point, and the guy is still barely in his prime years.
Yeah, well, this is what I'll say is like you don't become like the whole thing with him was like, oh, does he have like prior to this, like does he have this killer instinct, right? It's like, well, you don't go into Milwaukee and score 46 if you don't have a killer instinct. He was playing so poorly against Philadelphia. You don't hit those clutch shots at the end of the game, taking those shots, knowing how poorly you were shooting. And if you don't hit those shots, you're taking all the criticism for your team losing the series. And Tatum, he nutted up and hit those shots. Like he was not scared of the moment whatsoever. He's never been scared of the moment. You don't destroy Kevin Durant if you're not a ruthless competitor. But to that point, that series, and I know it's like, it's low budget because it's the first series. I still don't know why we started that game at 8:50 p.m. when it's two East Coast teams, and it's not like people outside of Boston and Orlando are watching that game. This is in the NBA Finals, and it's the Orlando Magic. Okay, but it's total digression. That's the most fun I've ever had watching Tatum play. Like what he was doing was ruthless. Valenti mentioned the offensive rebounding because there was a quarter where they had like 7. After that, Tatum's like, no. It ain't happening anymore. And you saw he was going after every single rebound. And then like the style that they had to play where after the the final game of the series. He had 45 isolation points, which was the most in the NBA at that point, up until that point in the playoffs. He said, all right, this is how we're going to play, because he doesn't want to play that way, right? He wants to get everybody involved. That's how, like, if you go back to last year.
In the first quarter?
Yeah, whatever. Like, if you look at how he plays, it's dictated by the matchup. Oh, okay. So Dallas last year. Hey, this is how you're going to have to play, Tatum. You're going to have to drive the ball, because this is how we get Dallas's defense, like, in a bind. Tatum had the most drives he's ever had in a single game last year in the NBA Finals, in his entire career, because that's what was meant. That's the way they were going to win. In this series, it's like, hey, you're by far our best isolation player. Derek White's a great player. We're not going to have him going at guys in isolation. Jaylen did it in a couple of games, but also, like, his knee is not in the best shape right now. All right, I'll do it. So Wendell Carter, you want some? Come on up here. I'm going to go by you. Hey, Paolo, who's 270 pounds. Hey, you know what I'm going to do to you? I'm going to get you into the paint, and then I'm going to create separation, hit a one-legged Dirk jumper over you. He did it to everybody. And you can say, yeah, it wasn't the most efficient style of basketball for the Celtics. But you know what he did? He hit 37 free throws in a row. 37 free. He missed his first 4 free throws of the series, and then he hit 37 in a row because he was. And I know some of them were at the end where they were fouling, but he's getting to the basket constantly. And like the stuff that he was doing, like with the wrist, I was loving that. And then my favorite part of the series is, like, Al was so pissed off. He hated the Magic. But when they got into that little scrum with KCP pushes him. He doesn't even entertain him. He just laughs at him. Like, he looks back and he's just laughing at KCP. First, I don't know why Tatum got a T for that. Like, Tatum deserves most of the T's that he gets. That's, like, one of the only critiques you can have for the guy. It's like, dude, he's not Luka bad. He's not Jokic bad compared to the rest. But I think we can dial it down a little bit. But that was my favorite moment, where it's like, there's nothing you can do to bother me right now. Like, you're going to push me after the whistle. You cannot bother me. So I just thought, like, he's gone from – and my boss, Bill Simmons, made this point on his pod. Like, last year, you could say, like, him and Jaylen were 1A and 1A, or 1A and 1B, right? Like, they were close. Like, it's not even close now. Like, Tatum is on a totally different level. Like, he's raised his game. The only, like, what has he not gotten better at? Like, maybe his 3-point percentage isn't great. But I was having this conversation with Bobby Manning a couple weeks ago. Like, some of those threes he takes, it's because he has a big on him. So, like, the philosophy is, oh, there's no big to get an offensive rebound. So maybe if it doesn't look like the most efficient three, and it's like, why are you taking, just go by the center. It's like, oh, like, that's part of the calculus. Sometimes he has to take those bad threes, just like we saw Anthony Edwards do that against the Lakers when they didn't have big. So he was taking some bad threes. So I don't know. I just love everything about his game right now. And the most underrated part is probably his defense. Like, his defense is phenomenal.
Yeah, I just think because the counting numbers that he's going to put up here, unless something goes horribly wrong, are going to be so unbelievably good that people are just going to – and it does mean more when you do it against the Knicks. I don't know why it would mean more coming against this particular Knicks team, but it does mean more because there's so many more eyes on it. And I think coming off of, again, an insane series where he was unbelievable, I've been touting not the entire season, but for most of the season, he's the closest thing to prime LeBron that this league has is Tatum. The way he's able to be the queen of the chessboard and figure out all these different ways to play, this playmaking, distribution, all that stuff is all top tier level. I think if you do it against the Knicks and MSG, I think there's a little something special there, a little something extra there. And as we all try and change this narrative around Jayson Tatum, because, like, again, we watch him all the time, and it's really annoying to listen to people try and not make him seem like he's a top 3 player in the league, because he is. This series might be the one that might convince some people. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass and I have no idea what I'm talking about. I just know that considering what he's done against the Knicks this year, 33.5, 7-7, like, this is going to be a really painful series for Knicks fans if Tatum's not hurt at all.
Well, I think to both of your points, you know, this isn't a Boston New York basketball rivalry thing so much as it's just like the mecca that is MSG, right? And games where you show out, like, guys, it means a lot to guys, playoffs or otherwise, to play at Madison Square Garden, to have big games at Madison Square Garden, to be part of that conversation of dudes who have had, you know, dropped 40 plus, 50 plus, whatever it may be at MSG. If Tatum has a couple of road games in this series, I'm not talking about he has double dimes, but the guy goes for, you know, 35 plus in a Celtics 10-point win, outduels Brunson both times. Like these are things that people remember and will recount in ways that they wouldn't if the exact same stat line and score happened, but it was Boston 1 in Detroit.
Yeah, I don't know. I disagree with the MSG thing. I think the Kia Center in Orlando is a more
I mean,
more historic building.
See, I thought you were about to give me something there.
I
did.
I love it, man.
That place is
Not right here and here, you know.
so many Celtics fans in the Kia Center, and I know there will be Celtics fans at MSG, but it's
Well,
just
they
like
do. The Boston, you know, the New Englanders. We do travel to Florida.
yeah. You know what place I hate? You know what arena I absolutely hate? Not like hate the building because I've been there before. I was actually there for the NCAA tournament, but if it is Cleveland Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, and you guys are probably going to hate me for this, and all your listeners are probably going to hate me for this, pay attention to the PA announcer. He is so loud, like obnoxiously loud that it comes through the TV. I've asked people about Cleveland about this. I don't have a good answer why he's so loud. I have no idea. But anytime somebody hits a three, it is just obnoxiously loud. That I cannot stand that. The arena for it. It's a great arena and all that. It's a great place to watch a basketball game. I just cannot stand the PA announcer.
Just for the sake of it working out for us all on the calendar here, we don't need to do like a Cleveland, Indiana preview or anything like that. But you give short thoughts if you want to. But how about a prediction for each of these series? I think we all believe the Celtics are going to win. So how many games does it take? And does Cleveland ultimately get by Indiana? And how long does that take? F.
Season 5. Cavs in 6. This Pacers team's tough though. If people haven't, if you're not watching the Pacers, you should, because they're just fun to watch offensively. They are a nightmare to play. And if Halliburton is healthy, and he seems like he is, they're definitely a different animal, different beast. And they make you cover 92 feet of the floor. They're very, very impressive. And Carlisle's going to have some stuff cooked up, no question. I think the Cavs are more talented than them, which is how they'll win this, but it won't be easy. And as the C's, again, we talk about rest all the time. C's having good rest is going to be really big.
Yeah, I think for the Celtics, the most common pick will be the Celtics in 5. I think that I'm going to give the Knicks at least one game, and I'm going to give them another game because I think something weird's going to happen. Like, we've seen how the first round for the Celtics was impacted by some of these injuries. So I'm going to say the Celtics win in 6. They close out at MSG in that 6th game. And then, but I don't think we'll feel like threatened that the Celtics, even if it's a 6 games, I don't think we'll feel threatened that they're going to lose. I think the Celtics win this in 6, although I could see 5. And then as for the Cavaliers, I'm saying Cavs in 7. I think that's a 7-game series. Like, the other underrated part about Indy is it's really a tough building to play in. Like, that's one of the only buildings I think in the NBA. I don't know, like the Intuit Dome too now, I guess. But like, I may sound like an idiot if I'm wrong on this. I think that arena is only for basketball. So I think that's why it feels like the fans are right on top of you. Like, obviously there's no NHL team in Indiana, but I don't think they play like hockey games there at all. Like, I think that is a pure basketball arena. And I thought that was an awesome atmosphere last year when the Celtics played them in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think it's a tough, like a really difficult place to win.
Yeah, I'm going to, I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Knicks do take the Celtics to 6, but I will join the chorus of Boston in 5. I think that's ultimately how it does play out. I think we're more likely to see 6 than we are 4. I don't think we're going to get a sweep in this series. I think 5 is the most likely outcome here. Obviously, the sports books agree as well. As far as the other series, it's funny. There's a part of me that I join you guys. I think the Pacers are going to put up a hell of a fight. I think there's even an outside chance that Indiana wins this series. I'm gonna still say Cleveland in 6. I wanted to say 7, and then Halliburton's dad got himself kicked out of the series. So I'm going to pull it back down to 6. I think we're going to lose that distraction of John Halliburton or whatever his first name is. I don't think he's going to be out there getting in the faces of Donovan Mitchell and all these other guys. So, but I think the Pacers, so long as they stay intact, which obviously they are right now, I do think they're going to be a problem. Mobley is going to be a really interesting X factor in that series. Before we go, because we are over an hour, I just
Kaufman, hold on. One
Yeah.
question for you. Have you had any? You've got 2 kids, right? Have you seen
3.
anything like that on the 3 on the Little
Yeah.
League field? You got any parents like that on the Little League field going after the other players?
Going after the other players, no, because the kids are so young. But
Yeah, true.
I mean, it's as the kids have gotten a little older, like my oldest is 12, as the kids have gotten a little older, I have seen parents, both sides, more so other towns, with a lot of class here. But more, I've seen parents get kicked out of games for for bickering with officials, bickering with like coach on the other team, just yelling whatever it may be down at kids on the court. Like it's interesting when you start to get to the parents get kicked out of games age of
Dude,
sport.
I like umped a little bit, like when I was in high school to like, make some money. And
Yeah.
like parents would just like scream at you. I'm like behind the plate. I'm like, dude, it's not that serious. And like, admittedly, I had a pretty big strike zone because I'm like, all right, we're going to get this game going, right? Like, you can't have a small strike zone if you're umpiring Little League, right? Like,
No.
come on. So, yeah, parents are crazy, man. But
Nuts.
that Halliburton thing, like, that guy is an absolute clown.
I love that Tyrese was like, I'm going to have a conversation with my dad. We're going to like, essentially, we're going to lock this up. His dad's doing an interview with the news like an hour later. Like, it's like, come on, there's no control. It's no wonder the Pacers banned him from the arena, home and road, for the foreseeable future. Yeah, train wreck of a situation. I do want to, just because Celtics City has concluded, let's have a moment to discuss it. Now, Barrett, I don't know if given your position as an employee of Bill Simmons, if there's any room for critique, or if it's just the most wonderfully produced documentary in the history of documentaries. But I do believe, I'm sure, Ev, like, we've texted a bunch about it. Obviously, great doc. I mean, it met or even exceeded my expectations. I did not come away disappointed. Learned a couple new things along the way. A lot of the stuff that was talked about in advance from screenings or media who had seen the entire thing that wrote about it, once embargoes were lifted, that type of thing, lived up to the hype. Like stars of the show, whether it was Kuzi or Parrish or some of these guys that we were told were going to be, sure enough were. It was awesome. Some voices certainly that I would have loved to have heard or heard more of, like Mike Gorman not being part of this thing, whether he was interviewed and cut or opted to not do it. I have no idea. I have not inquired as to any sort of a backstory there. But 40+ year voice of the Celtics not being part of it. Again, even if it was his choosing, just unfortunate. Would have loved to have heard him be part of it. I had a friend of mine reach out, ask Damon Amendolara, another Syracuse guy. He was like, I've watched it. Wonderful documentary, loved it. He texted me a whole bunch of thoughts about it, but he was really curious what I thought about it. And I thought it was interesting to go back and forth with him, Celtics fan who looks at it through a certain prism versus just general basketball fan who is not a Celtics fan, looking through it obviously through another lens. And, I don't know if you guys felt this. I think we're all sort of, as we watch anything, biased toward our own era a certain degree, right? And so, like, I want to say the 7th episode, setting up the final 2, ended with, like they're teasing the new Big 3 era at that point. So we basically got one episode. This is if I remember this right. We basically got one episode of like the Pierce KG Allen era. Much of that was obviously 08 and winning the championship. And then one episode of where we are now and everything that has happened since, and like the tear down rebuild once again. And I wanted to see a lot more of that, especially as someone who has lived through that. I wanted to experience a lot more of that. Like that could have so easily been like 2 episodes on each era, right? It could have been like you could have 4 more episodes, but I will readily acknowledge, like, when is enough enough? Like, it's already a 9-part documentary. You're going to make it 11, you make it 13, you're going to make it 50. Like, where does it end? So it's like, that is not an easy task on the part of Simmons and everybody else involved with this. But, you know, like, it's like you have like Isaiah Thomas out there complaining that he's not part of it. People saying like you spent 3 seconds on Gordon Hayward getting hurt and then never even mentioned again. Like, none of the drama with Kyrie Irving was discussed at all. I'm not even positive. I'd have to, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I'm not even actually sure that the trade of Garnett and Pierce to the Nets that created, you know, where we are now, that brought in all the draft picks that turned into obviously Tatum and Brown. I'm not sure that was mentioned. Like, the trade was
it's in there.
It was.
No, but I mean, like,
AG and Paul weren't happy about it.
No, but I'm not sure that it was specifically mentioned that it was for those draft picks that turned into those guys. You know?
Yeah,
what I mean?
it was.
Okay, and maybe I missed the line. You know what I mean? It wasn't extensively discussed, which is fine. Like, there's only so much room to do all of that. But there were just like little things that I as a fan, I wanted more of. You know what I mean? I don't know if did you guys come out of it at all feeling like fully satisfied, or like, oh man, like I would have loved to expand upon X, Y, and Z.
You want to take this one, Barrett? Because I got.
Yeah, I was more than fully satisfied, and I actually loved how it ended with Kuzi seeing the 18th championship. I thought that was so cool. The Len Bias Reggie Lewis stuff is just so tough. Like, you know, obviously I wasn't born when the Len Bias stuff happens, and just like seeing how like Bird was like, it felt like Bird was going to hand the torch over to Len Bias, and then that happens, and then to connect that all with then Reggie Lewis, who turned out to be like way better than anybody expected.
Sure.
And then to go from that to Paul Pierce gets stabbed 11 times.
Yeah.
And like, is this actually happening again? Like that era of the Celtics. My favorite part of by the way, one other thing about the most recent episode, did not know that about Donnie Wahlberg and Jalen. That when Jalen got booed, Donnie Wahlberg caught. Because I'm like, Donnie Wahlberg's like always at these games, but I didn't realize he had, and obviously he's a Boston guy. Like, it's not shocking that he'd be at all these games, but I didn't realize that he had that type of relationship with Jalen, where the point where Jalen in the documentary is saying like, yeah, that was really cool of him. Like, he said, like, that helped him adapt to the city when he reached out to him. My favorite part of the documentary, and I'm probably the only one that this is their favorite part of the documentary, is Pitino, because I was so fascinated by the Pitino years. And when Pitino, did you guys know the story that he was making guys lose weight?
No, that was.
I'm like, dude, what the hell? He's making guys, and then he's.
That was like the one moment that I texted Ev. That was one of the only things in the entire doc that I was like, I texted people immediately after. Was the like, do you see that letter that Chris Wallace got from Pitino? My God.
And then he's like proud of it. He said he lost like 50 pounds. Remember that?
He bought him Brioni suits for the two of you that are orange-gated in Brioni suits.
$10,000 suit or whatever it was.
High-end quality suits to make it sound like he was a better person.
Dude, he also thinks like he didn't do a bad job coaching. He said his problem was being the GM. He doesn't think he did a bad job coaching. And who was it? I think it was Jackie McMillan had the line.
She had the line of the whole doc.
Yeah, what was it? That was the dumbest move.
I don't remember I don't remember it word for word, but it was, if we're talking about the same thing.
Chauncey Billups?
But no. I was thinking of his exit. Jackie Mack has a line that is something along the lines of, you know, Rick Pitino resigned in the middle of the season over fax, saying that he was going to hold a press conference to discuss all his failures, and we're still waiting. that was the line. It was
perfect.
Chef's kiss. Perfect.
Yeah. Jackie Mack rules.
Yeah, I was talking about the Billups thing, where she's like, dumbest move you could ever make. They traded him like 50 games into his career. Yeah. I still can't believe that.
You know what though? Like, stupid trade. And I thought it was a stupid trade at the time. And that's not even me believing like Chauncey Billups is going to be a Hall of Famer. But where I will give him some benefit of the doubt with that, Billups was with like 4 organizations before he landed with Detroit and became that guy. Like, there are a lot of people that got Billups wrong before he became that dude.
Yeah. But it's the whole idea of a guy you believed in so much to draft him 3rd overall.
Yeah.
You're done with him 50 games in.
Totally. Yeah, no, it was because he was impatient, wanted to win right away.
I hate giving Patino credit. I hate doing this, but at least he like took questions and answered them. You know, I'll give him a little credit for that.
Could have easily said, "I'm not doing it."
Yeah, absolutely. Easily, and you know, but he at least stepped in front of the camera and answered some things he needed to answer. The lack of Isaiah Thomas stuff, and it's just tough because it's already a 9-part doc. Do you cut one of the Larry Bird episodes short and make them only 2 instead of 3? I mean, that's really the only. They glossed through a lot of the newer stuff, which. Yeah. Again, we've been living it, so maybe that's part of it. Again, I'm not a producer of a documentary series. I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. I know what Isaiah meant to the city of Boston, and like you guys lived it. They weren't going to win anything, but they were so fun to watch play. It didn't even matter. Like the regular season was fun, and that was cool. And like what they would accomplish, like so. Yeah, they're not going to win the title, but they're going to make teams work for it. Like that was it was a fun part of basketball. Mm-hmm. And like going into Golden State and winning that game where nobody had won in I don't know how many games prior, but this like little bullshit Celtics team that had like Isaiah Thomas and Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk and like Marcus Smart like went into Oracle Arena, a place that's really hard to play, and beat at like midnight. Like I think it was like 12:30 in the morning, like 1 o'clock in the morning. That game got over, and I watched every second of it because it was awesome. Like that's the only thing that I had, I guess, a problem with. Again, it was awesome. It was funny, Kaufman, you mentioned the Donnie Wahlberg stuff. He has mentioned on our show a few times that him and Jalen are close. Yeah, but that particular part,
that's a hell of a footnote.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Donnie's the coolest. We love Donnie's been so gracious with us on our show that to have him speak a little bit more on it was really cool, and he can kind of connect a lot of the stuff together. So it was cool.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, look, I'm thrilled the doc exists, and that I mean it was a compelling watch from moment one, and it hit the high notes, hit the low notes, and there was just no way it was going to get everything in. Like you just can't. You can't. Like you will not satisfy all people. Like even Max, who was a pretty substantial part of this documentary, I would say, came out of it like disappointed that there wasn't more time spent on him and his era with the Celtics and him.
Yeah, it was a little ridiculous that Max was mad about that.
But I mean, like that just like sort of feeds the point that
I think he's still mad over the Walton trade.
It could be. Yeah. Could be. But anyway, listen. These Celtics, who, as we know, are not done having documentaries made about them, are chasing banner 19. We're sitting here May 2nd, ballpark 6-7 weeks away from achieving that if they can get there. It's going to be a really, really fun upcoming series against the Knicks. And so long as, again, health being paramount, knock on wood, as long as they can stay on the floor, be themselves, I think I feel as I've always felt about this team for years now. They are their own worst enemy. So just go out. Don't play with your food. Don't take anything for granted. You're going to be just fine. Got it done against the Magic. We'll get it done against the Knicks as well. But we will be with you along the way throughout the series to be able to break things down. Once again, today's show powered by Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Create an account. Use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. For Brian Barrett, of course, The Ringer, Spotify, Off the Pike podcast. Make sure you check it out. Always enjoy when he joins us. Check out his show. Comes at you even more frequently, giving you game-by-game recaps, previews, breakdowns, all of it. And we will join you, obviously, throughout the playoffs. That much more as well. Here with Evan Valenti, I'm Adam Kaufman. We'll talk to you again real soon. Thank you for tuning into Celtics Beat.